Okay, how many of us attend networking functions, meet-up groups, things of that nature? Show of hands. How many of us find, though, that when people ask, what do you do? And you've only got a very, very short period of time to give your pitch, if you like, that some of us get hung by the tongue. Okay. Well, see, our next gentleman, he's going to help you overcome that. He was actually a behavioural therapist with autistic kids and in medical research as National Cognitive Assessment Coordinator with Monash University and Alfred Hospital. This gentleman actually brings a complete three-way holistic approach of research based on human behaviour principles, innovative contemporary ideas around human interaction and competition experience, public speaking skills to maximise reception of your message. How many of us want to have more reception to our message? Yeah. Fantastic. This gentleman actually started his coaching journey at the end of 2014. Very quickly discovered an absolute passion for public speaking after attending Toastmasters. He's worked primarily with leadership development, but also got into the niche of pitching and presentation after realising that many presentation coaches lacked science and empirically based knowledge in capturing attention. Combined with his strength in constructing and developing pitches in the leadership space, pitching became his primary focus. He likes to use game-based exercises to teach stagecraft and speaking. As he says, your pitch is your brand, it is your marketing, it is who you are. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge round of applause for the pitch specialist, Eric Chan.
Welcome, Eric. Sit down, big fella. Thank you. Just before we begin, I just want to say I apologise for my lateness. Leaders are early, and I didn't want to skip over that fact. I wanted to be respectful of your time, ask for your forgiveness, and hopefully I can provide you enough value to make up for it. So I really do apologise.
Excellent. What if we don't forgive you?
Well, I'm going to do my best to mesmerise you and change your mind, right?
So Eric, we're very excited. I know that you've created a niche market, because one of the things that we know in the business marketplace, we give everyone 60 seconds to pitch what they do, what sets them apart, and basically their call to action. And I think it's fair to say a lot of them struggle in that area. So how important is a 60-second pitch?
Well, I would say the 60-second pitch is of paramount importance, because when you walk into a networking group or a meet-up group, you have no exposure to the individuals. They don't know you, and rarely do you know them, especially if you're new in business. So when you are given the gift of the stage, and you have people's attention, their eyes and their ears, you have to realise that it's exactly that, a gift. It really is a gift. It's an honour and a privilege to have people give you their focus and attention. So you need to make sure that you do your best to convey exactly who you are, what you're about, not only for the benefit of yourself, but for your audience members as well.
So within our community, you've made a profound impact on many of our members. What are some of the things that you do in order to help them raise their bar and actually achieve that objective of really pitching beautifully? What do you do and how do you help them?
Well, I think the first thing I make my clients realise is that pitching and presentation is not just a skill for business, it's an essential skill for life. And you have to really decide what level you want to play at. I'm a big believer that in terms of speaking, there are 3 tiers, almost like a bell curve if you remember from high school days, right? You have the bottom end of the individuals who can't do it at all, wouldn't even turn up to a networking meeting. They wouldn't speak, they get nervous. Then you have the middle band is actually where most people fall. Most people can get up and speak. We always throw around that old school statistical article saying that public speaking is the number 1 or number 2 fear that people experience. Even though they fear it, they still engage in it, and most people are able to speak. But if you want to become a really great pitcher or a really good presenter, you have to think about what level do you want to play at. Do you want to play on that higher band? Aim for that perfection, the Tony Robbins style, and then wherever you fall, at least you've got excellence, right? That was taught to me by Clinton Swain. Aim for perfection instead of for excellence.
So that's a profound comment. And how do you actually help people if they're in those areas, those tiers that you were just speaking of? How would you help somebody, for example, at the bottom tier who really just has a total fear of speaking, how would you get him or her to at least present and start that journey?
Yeah, when I get asked that question, people are always looking for some sort of complex answer or some sort of amazing secret. But the real secret to help people get from their beginnings, their novice presenting status, is to actually be vulnerable. Be completely vulnerable. When the great speakers get up on stage, yes, they've done all the preparation, they've done all the practice, but if you are passionate about what you do, and you know your craft and you know your industry, it's the vulnerability that will carry you to the next level of your presenting. To be completely okay with what comes into your mind and into your heart in that moment, and to just say it. Everyone's so worried about making the right decision. But as a speaker, you need to make your decision right. Because no one knows what you're going to say. Only you know. And every time you self-correct, and apologize for making a mistake while you're presenting, it's all about you rather than the audience. If you want to become a great speaker, you really need to put your focus on the audience, and that is the first step.
Excellent. So share with us a couple of examples of people, not necessarily by name, where they were fearful and then they were able to just blossom. What did you do? How did you help them? Along the lines of what you've just said, what was their injection that you gave them that got them to that point?
Well, again, to bring in my mentor, Clinton Swain, who does a lot of experiential training, I follow his model of trial by fire, right? Straight out of the frying pan into the fire. So when people have problems with expanding their body language or their tone or their volume and their pace, what I do is I get them to play very simple games. There's this game called Walk the Walk that I learned from a mentor, and the game is pretend that you're a sugar plum fairy experiencing the garden for the very first time. And that may seem like a very simple, out-of-the-box game, but if you think about it, it forces you to visualize what's going on. It forces you to move and react and play act and mime those movements that are completely congruent with the context and therefore with your message as well. So when I get people to just get out of their comfort zone, to expand themselves, all of a sudden they realize or become aware of another notch, another gear in their abilities. But they have to have awareness first. So that's one example.
Would I make a good sugar plum fairy?
You make an excellent sugar plum.
Thank you. I won't ask why. I'll just accept that as a compliment.
It's that beautiful skin and all that other one.
Yeah, thank you. You've noticed too, have you? Yes, we'll move on then. But again, if you do want beautiful skin, go and see the girls over there. So let's go to our audience party. Let's get going. We've already got one young lady here. We've got a gentleman over there with a hand up, I think. So here's our first question. Eric.
Thank you.
How much training does it take, Eric, to get someone from like lowest level to being almost perfect, basically, like me?
Yeah, I understand your question.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. When it comes to public speaking and all endeavours, first off, it's all, number one, up to the individual. I've had individuals who are such high achievers in terms of time commitment and energetic commitment that they can do it really quickly. But if you're talking in a general sense, it actually doesn't take that long to be a really great speaker. To get to elite level speaker requires you to have the experience being exposed to many different crowd sizes. So I'm talking about the highest echelon, the Tony Robbins level. That takes ages. That takes probably like 5 to 10 years really to get to that level. But to reach the upper quadrant of, say, the bell curve, to use that example again, you could do it within 6 months. You really can. Because, like I said, the core, the secret is vulnerability. And when you become completely relaxed in who you are, the best speakers aren't copies of other individuals. They're the best representations of themselves. So you don't have to be huge and expansive like a Tony Robbins. You can be one that's more mild, maybe more like a channeler type, a very motherly archetype speaker. But if you are in that role to the best of your ability, and when people look at you, they see congruence. That's the main thing, right? They see congruence. Then you all of a sudden become a really great speaker. And the ums and ahs will disappear with time, experience, but also if you understand that poise and pauses are very powerful. Show poise. Just stop. Just stop. There's this example that I use in workshops where I was trying to teach this particular distinction, this particular distinction, and I forgot what the second half of the distinction was. But then I used my training, so I'll demonstrate for you. So I was thinking to myself, I go, grace is the absence of the unnecessary. Yeah? See, my mentor taught me that one as well. Now, I did the pauses, I stopped, I looked at people, and everyone was like, yeah, how profound, right? How profound. But in my head, it's grace. If I stuff this up, my reputation is ruined. This is meant to be one of the key learnings that I'm sharing from one of my favorite mentors. How we're gonna see, people don't know though, but if you have poise and you just hold the space, the audience will react in a completely different way. If you apologize, people will console you. If you own it, even when you make mistakes, people will reward you for trying. Okay? Very different.
Next question? No? Okay.
It's an interesting observation, because I remember when I started at 27 speaking, I had no idea, and all the Toastmasters and Rotaries and all came and said, oh, you need to stand this way or that way, or do this or do that, and I took no notice of any of that. I just did what you said. And they came back to me months later and said, oh, can you come and share with us how you do what you do? So I think really it's about speaking, as you said, from the heart and conveying with the vulnerability. I love that distinction that you made. The ability just to share your message and have people be, as we spoke last night at dinner, authentic. Authentic is crucial. Be vulnerable and say it the way it is. So give us a few tips and points. So right now what we've got is a live audience. I'd love to see them that take away some things they could do immediately today. What would be one or two things they could do immediately that would already enhance their ability to do a better pitch?
Yep. So some of the tips that I want to share with you that you can immediately implement is number one, move away from detail, okay? The point of your pitch and presentation is to capture attention, not to educate. Not really. Who here by show of hands has seen Shark Tank? Well, Shark Tank or Dragon's Den or any sort of version of that? So in Shark Tank, what happens is they come in, they do their pitch, and then you'll notice after the pitch, after the applause, then they go through the numbers, and then they break it all down, and then they, review everything. But in the moment of the pitch, what they need to do is capture this moment from their investors, this sort of moment. You know, that moment where people are like nodding at you with the wide eye, that's what you want from a pitch moment. Then when you're networking during the break, that's when people come up to you, or you go up to them and you share the different details and points. But what you want to do is capture attention and move away from detail. The second thing is everyone loves the story. Everyone loves a story. And there is no bit of information or statistic that you can't tell through a narrative form. So really think about how you can make it a story, create visuals in your mind. Create visuals in their mind. Because if you are constructing the movie in their head, then they're not thinking about what's for dinner, they're not thinking about what they're going to do at their next break. They're actually playing the reel that you've implanted in their mind, which is about your business, about your particular service or offering.
Excellent. So one of the things that we do, and you and I have worked on, is the importance of the 60-second pitch. Because it's 60 seconds, it's got to be impactful. And there are three things I believe there needs to be a framework around. What is it somebody does? What sets them apart? And then a call to action. How important are those three components? What is it that they do? What sets them apart? And then a call to action.
Those components, I believe, are essential when you are first exposed to a new group for the first, one or two times. But if you go to a networking group where you see these individuals on a weekly to fortnightly basis, it starts to wear pretty thin, doesn't it? When you keep saying the same point over and over and over again. As I say, variety is the spice of life. I think when I bring my scientific mindset to it, is to actually understand what is the fundamental principle behind sharing those particular points. What sets you apart and all that. And the fundamental points, as outlined by a really fantastic book called Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. You should definitely get onto that book, right? But he says, think about it in terms of creating tension and then supplement it with some sort of intrigue points. So what creates tension in people's mind? That covers things like identify the problem, identify knowledge gaps or skill gaps. When you understand the basis, then you can think of other examples to fill it in. But the core of what the benefit of doing those particular or sharing those particular points are is that one, it creates tension, and then on the other side, it creates intrigue. And the really fantastic way he describes it, and the way that I like to share it, is don't think about your particular points in terms of is it good or bad. Think about it as, does this create enough dopamine and pleasure in my audience member when they hear it? Does this create enough stress when I share this particular pain point? Because sometimes what you may think would create a lot of stress doesn't in certain contexts. Like for smokers, right? When you share with them this will be bad for your health, that actually doesn't create a lot of stress for them. That's why people don't care. People don't care. But when I went to Hong Kong for the very first time back when I was 19, on the cigarette packets they had photos, just like we do here. But the photo they had was of a lady sitting in front of a vanity mirror where the reflection was of an old wrinkly version of herself. Because they really care about that sort of thing in Asian culture, all about very good skin. We all do right here, but they in particular have a focus on that in their culture. And those particular images work really well. Cancer risk doesn't, right? That's not a stressful enough point to stop people smoking. But if I get really old and wrinkly skin, then that will create enough stress in my mind to go, you know what? Perhaps smoking is not for me. So think about it in those terms. Think about the underlying cause and the underlying reasons behind why your message will create an impact, rather than just the cliche and the rhetoric behind the everyday messages.
That's awesome. I remember in the early days when I spoke, I used to use parables and stories, and used to always look at movies and pick something out. You may remember One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson. You remember that?
Yeah.
He was in a place for, let's say, mental home, and there was a challenge. If you remember, he had to pull this stone thing out of the ground, and they said you're mad, which I thought was amazing because it was the right place to be mad anyway. But you may remember he attempted 3 times and eventually failed, and they laughed at his failure and pointed at him. And the profound part there was he walked away and said, but at least I tried, damn you, at least I tried. So the analogy we would draw when we were talking to an audience is get off your butt and go and make something happen. So I love the fact that parables and stories are very, very present. Ladies and gentlemen, as we get some more questions, where's Martin? There must be some amazing questions you have. Yes, we've already got 2 here. So mine's just running straight to Russell and then to Dr. Gary.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. The thing I'm curious about, the emphasis on the pain or the pleasure. You can tell your story that, okay, they're going to feel bad about the problem that they got, or they'll feel good about what they're going to get as a result of it. What's your thoughts? Pleasure versus pain in different circumstances?
I think that, yes, there is always an argument to be made for look at the context. Things are context dependent. But when you approach presentation or any sort of endeavor with that mindset and you get too attached that, oh, everything is context dependent, you can get bogged down in the details and you can almost be, paralysis by analysis sort of situation. When you think about tension and intrigue, those are universal principles, they're ubiquitous in nature. And if you incorporate those 2 elements into your 60-second pitch, on the balance of probabilities, you'll reach the maximum amount of individuals. So don't get too bogged down on, should I not? A lot of people hate tension because they don't want to upset people. But if you look at the general populace and how people react to media, such as polarizing figures like Donald Trump, when they say something that's completely out of this world, ridiculous, but then they stick by those guns, for some reason there are people who will agree. There will be people who agree. And whether you agree with his politics or not, I'm talking about just the principle behind it. People will agree. Because people like tension. They do. They love it. Movies are built on it. The hero's journey, the traditional hero's journey in storytelling is all built about experiencing some sort of tension, moving away from it, developing and evolving, coming out on the other side. And that story is called the hero's journey and is prolific because it goes across time, culture, eras, and you need to accept that perhaps this is something that will work for most individuals. Because again, when you present and pitch, it's not about you and your beliefs about how a message should be created. You should be doing it for your audience, and your audience is varied, it's general, and it's made up of many different mindsets. And that's what you need to cater to. Stop thinking about yourself.
Eric, you make so many good points. one of the things that sticks in my mind of all the things you said today is that image of the woman looking at herself in the mirror on the cigarette pack. And there's this beautiful woman, and out looking back at her is this ugly, old, decrepit, falling apart thing. It made me laugh too. It come to life in your message. So in the interest of storytelling and tension and intrigue, I wonder if you can share with us a compelling short story that personalizes, that pictorializes something that you love to share with audiences, demonstrating tension to intrigue.
Yeah, so one of my favorite stories, because this really just illustrates my own journey. So my friends, at this age of 29, I'm running my own business, I'm a father, I'm married, I'm this fantastic individual that I'm quite proud of. But about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I was not that individual, and I'm happy to admit that right now. 6 or 7 years ago, I was at university, and I was partying like nobody's business. Partying like nobody's business. I worked at the casino for a while, and you think about it, I didn't have to pay rent, I didn't have to pay utilities, and I was earning a 4-figure paycheck. So every weekend was just fun, fun, fun. And then came one amazing day when my girlfriend came up to me holding a little stick in her hand, right? A little stick in her hand. And she said the 2 words that would change my life forever. On a count of 3, let's say it together, right? 1, 2, 3. That's right, I'm pregnant. And you can imagine in that moment, you know how in Hollywood movies they say that time slows down? And you get drawn into yourself, and all you can hear is that voice in your head, oh my God, what are you going to do? You were just recovering from a bender, and now you've got to take this responsibility of a new life. What's going to happen? And I was consumed by that fear for the whole 9 months. Because the funny thing about being a man is that nothing changes for you. The woman gets larger, they get, all those different emotions and the different feelings, they feel the life kicking in their body. But as a man, it's pretty much business as usual. And hands up, men, if you agree. Those who have had kids, yeah? Got a couple of hands there. And then come that one fateful day, which was 14th of May, see, I almost never forget that. 14th of May 2012 at the KC Berwick Hospital, the doctor shares that fantastic moment of one last push. One last push. And my friends, I have to tell you now, it happened again. My mind went into itself, everything narrowed, and I was thinking, oh my God, it's happening right now. It's actually happening. You're going to be a father. What if you're not ready? What if you're not good enough? And that thought was so consuming that I thought I was going to faint. But then that train of thought was broken by hearing a cry to the left of me. And I looked down and I saw my baby girl Emily for the very first time. And in that moment, I was changed in one single instant. Because when I saw that light, that part of me out there, physical form, I realized that I would never fail. Never. I'll always be the best that I can be. I will make it, because I learned in that defining moment, my friends, to love something more than I love myself. And that's the first time that I've ever experienced that, especially with how I grew up. And that changed me forever. And that started the journey of entrepreneurship, of being free of the negative mindset and letting the past control me. That single moment. So that's my story.
Very nice.
It's an opportunity during the course of today. All our speakers, bar I think Diana, who's going to go late, and Ridge are going to be present, so you're going to get an opportunity to get close up and personal and ask more questions. By the way, you said 2 words, but I think it was 3. I am pregnant. Yeah, so I just wanted to, it depends what school you went to, of course. The 12 years in prison helped me a lot. Anyway, moving on. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to put your hands together for Eric and make sure you catch up with him during the course of the morning. Over to Marty.
Thank you, champion. So who's having a fantastic time?
Yes.
Who has already got some unbelievable value and takeaways that they can implement?
Yes.
Who'd just like to share maybe one or two of the takeaways that they've already got? Isabel?
A few months ago, I was in that position where I thought there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And then I met Gary, and I met a group of fantastic people. And I also rekindled Diana. I didn't realize that I had met Diana about 10 years ago. And Diana has showed me that there is light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you for that.
Fantastic. Who else, please?
I think for me, just what Eric has said, I've been struggling for quite some time with my pitch and really been nervous. I'm not frightened of public speaking. I've been an educator in the past and done lots of presentations in an area that I'm very confident in, but I'm now in an area where I'm exploring for new. And I think what you said about being yourself, being passionate and coming from the heart, I have a pitch now which I'm still playing around with, but it's coming more from the heart, and what you said has just made me feel more confident about it. I just have to maybe see if it's something I can really use. I might talk to you about it afterwards, but that really, coming from the heart, I think is the best thing, because then you are real and people see you as being real, and I think that's how I've always taught in the past, and it's something I should remember to use and continue to use. It's a skill I have. Don't try and reinvent the wheel, use what I already have. So thank you.
Fantastic. Derek?
Following on that point as well, yes, thank you, Eric, for that story that followed. I am pregnant. Your vulnerability as strength really was touching. I had tears in my eyes, feeling how moving, how compelling that telling was. It brought it all to life. Thank you.
Well done.
Come on.
Having worked with both Eric and Diana professionally and spoken with them personally, the thing that came out in the interviews that I really loved was that they have a great spirit and that they support the community, and that's what we all aspire to do in the world today. And I think business is not just about business, it's about people and connection, and these two speakers rightfully deserve to be talking about their experience as people who connect well, who have beautiful spirit. So thank you for putting them on stage today.
I also think business is about having some fun still. We can have fun.
Yes, hello. I'm a small business owner and I met Diana quite a few months ago and we've been in business for nearly 5 years now, and my husband and I were stuck in a rut and couldn't get out of it. Meeting Diana, having the meetings that we have with Diana, I'm looking forward to what I can achieve and being successful, and I'm able to put that across to my husband and keep him positive. And I'm really excited for my future, which 5 years ago I was, not looking forward to that. So thank you, Diana, and I look forward to working with you a lot more.
Fantastic. Okay, just one last one up the back here.
Two things, pardon me, two things came out of that for me. Was Diana saying, what are you trying to accomplish, so you focus on an outcome. And Eric, it's not about me, it's about the audience.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that great feedback. Just going to quickly sit up here with Gary. He doesn't realise what I'm going to do now. We've got a few minutes whilst they're preparing morning tea out there for us. There's a huge event coming up very shortly called the Bankable Summit. Can you just tell us a little bit about that, please? Another brainchild of yours.
Thank you for asking. You may recall I mentioned about the South Melbourne market, the epiphany we had. It's very interesting about human beings. I'm going to be, I hope not patronising or condescending, but most of us are like children. We need new toys all the time to keep us amused. And if you know me, and some of you do well, I'm one of these guys when I do something, when I say I'm going to do it, I do it there and then. So I had this epiphany to put on an event at the Melbourne Showgrounds. This epiphany was in January and I decided to put the event on in May, giving myself plenty of time, as you do. And I recall this particular first event was at the Melbourne Showgrounds. We had 100 plus exhibitors and a fair few hundred people in the auditorium. We started in the morning at about 7:30 with Justin Herald, a speaker, who talks on attitude. And after 10 minutes we saw attitude come to play because the fire brigade were on their way. One of the exhibitors had a pie warmer and the smouldering started the alarm system. So there's panic and pandemonium and the security come in and say, Gary, we've got some good news and some bad news. I always like the bad news first. We've called the fire brigade. The good news is they're not coming. Had they come, it would have cost you $3,000. Justin this time is outside smoking cigarettes, you know, he's talking about attitude. He's got 3 or 4 going at one time and there's pandemonium. During the course of the morning, we're talking about being authentic. I knew at 11 a.m. this was not how I envisaged the event. So I got on the tannoy and I said, ladies and gentlemen, all storeholders, exhibitors, please stop, put down everything, meet me in the main auditorium. Some of you were there that first time, you were there. In the auditorium, I got up and I said, this was not how I foresaw what I saw. So I'm going to gift all of you a store back in October this year. We're going to do it again. We're going to do differently better. It's a gift. So my son and daughter at the time went around and those that had a store were filling in their form to say thank you. And then something amazing happened. This is the spirit of human nature. One lady came up to me, she said, I've got a store, thank you for the gift of another one, but because of your gift I'm going to buy an additional one. Then a guy came up to me and he said, you think I'm here today for BSI Radio, but in actual fact I'm a director of the Small Business Institute. We've got 14,000 clients and I'd like to support and endorse you because of your work and your attitude. Cut a long story short, we ran the second one. The second one was at the Melbourne Showground. It was a bit bigger, but we were in a different part of the showground and it was raining profusely. And there was a puddle in the middle of the auditorium. And so what did people do? Some people were focusing on the puddle. One of my friends said, let's just jump in and swim and have a bit of fun. And enlightened. But I walked away and I had a discovery. The discovery I had was that people were judging us based on the day. Oh, there's not enough foot traffic, it's cold, it's windy, it's rainy, it's hot. So again, focusing on them, what they didn't have rather than what they did. And the second epiphany I had, and I'm going to answer your question, was that we needed to create a relationship with people. And born from that was the business marketplace membership. And a lot of the people in this auditorium here are members of that community, in fact probably half. We meet every month and twice a year, biannually, we run a massive event at the showgrounds. But here's the discovery that I've made. Because we foster relationships, people no longer judge us on the day of the event because we're already friends. We meet, buy, sell, connect, we facilitate, we make things happen. So the moral to the story is that it's about relationships. It's about forgiveness that Eric asked before. It's about overcoming the minorities and stop stuffing around and focusing on what you don't have and look at what you do. The Business Summit, by the way, and thank you for asking the question, we own an analogy called bank. I'm very much into words and I love playing on words. And I went to ASIC to register the word bank and ASIC said no, you can't have it. Why do you think they said no? It sounds like a bank. So what do? I just go back and I rethink things. So I registered Breakthrough Armchair Negotiation Community Proprietary Limited, which they said fantastic. And I created the bank anyway. So now I own the trademark, the registration, the proprietary, the whole thing. But the Bankable Summit on October the 12th is bringing you, as a client, a member, into an auditorium, and I'm going to make you this commitment. You can potentially do more business in one day than most people do in a year. So if you'd like more information on that, we've actually got some paraphernalia here. Please take it and think about it. You can become a member, you can become a storeholder, or you can just come as an attendee and really do your stuff. Just before we go, when we hear from Russell later, here's one of the biggest objections people have in business. We don't have enough time. You know what? Get real. You have plenty of time. It's about priority, discipline, focus, and all those things. You'll hear more about that later from Russell. Thank you for the question. Just before we do, remind everyone, please, at the break that we've got our sponsors through the auditorium. We want everyone to circulate. You're going to get the opportunity to be pampered, refreshed, and hydrated. please go and talk to the ladies. He's
Oh,
touching,
he's soft.
he's touching my skin. I better just explain to you before you all start thinking he or I or both. It's all about skincare protection and edification. And Eric was talking about looking in the mirror and looking grizzly. So if you want to avoid that, go and talk to the girls. Make sure you go through and see our sponsors. This event is all been put together by our sponsors and by TradeNet. So make sure you take advantage. When's our tea break, please?
Yeah, our tea break should be ready in, how long, Daniel?
5 minutes.
In 5 minutes.
Okay, so there's an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to already go into the auditorium, go and have a look at the sponsors, and make sure you have tea and coffee. And when do we got to be back, please? Make sure we're all punctual.
We have to be back at 11 a.m. That's 11 a.m, please.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, opportunity to have a first break.
Thank you.